Hello and welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We do have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be joined later on by Jack Posobiec. He is the host of Human Events Daily. He also has a new book out about communism. And if you're familiar with Jack, you know that he comes from the right-wing side of the aisle. So you can imagine he's very against communism, against Marxism. His new book is called Unhumans: The Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. And if you're the type that's already scoffing, don't scoff just yet. Just listen to the conversation. Jack is an anti-war populist. I guarantee you're going to learn something, and it's going to be very insightful. So you're not going to get all of this war. We need war with all these Marxists. You're not going to get that conversation. It's going to be more sophisticated than that. I'm sure of it. Also on tonight's show, has the Azov Battalion enacted a silent coup in Ukraine? There's evidence that Zelensky's not actually in control, but the leaders of the Azov Battalion are truly the ones running the show in Ukraine. We're going to be talking about the latest evidence of this. But before we get to all of that, here is a really cool device that I want to tell you guys about. It's called Lumen. And if you've ever wondered how to get real-time insights into your metabolism, this device will do just that. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. So this revolutionary device measures your metabolism. All you have to do is breathe into it. And with the app, it tells you if you're burning fat or carbs. Plus, it offers personalized guidance on your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. It's simple. You just breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll instantly know if you're burning fats or carbs. Lumen then provides a customized nutrition plan for the day based on your measurements. You can also check before and after workouts and meals to get real-time insights and tips on maintaining peak health. Your metabolism is the engine of your body, turning food into fuel. Optimal metabolic health translates to easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and enhanced sleep. Lumen gives you actionable recommendations to boost your metabolic health. It can also track hormonal changes such as your cycle or menopause and adjust its advice to help maintain your energy and curb cravings. It's really cool. I have one. I've been starting to use it. I'm just now getting into it, so I want to I'll tell you guys more as I use it more, but so far it's pretty cool because when it's really cool to see if you're burning fats or if you're burning carbs or, where you're at. And then you could kind of adjust your diet to make sure that you're burning the right stuff. So success so far. I've already lost a couple pounds using it. So it's so far so good. Visit lumen.me/Iverson to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Iverson for 15% off. All right. Has the Azov Battalion enacted a silent coup in Ukraine? We have lots of clues that they have enacted a silent coup in Ukraine. First of all, let me just show you. So here's Zelensky. I'm going to just kind of go over a couple of things that have happened recently. But here's Zelensky. He's actually signing this security agreement, a 10-year security agreement sitting there with him is the Prime Minister of Estonia. Now, I thought this was really particularly interesting because this is a weapons agreement. You see them shaking hands. They've agreed to, Estonia's agreed to essentially provide Zelensky, Ukraine, with a bunch of weapons, with a bunch of aid, a bunch of support for 10 years. So that's sounding like a long time war, if you ask me. That's looking at the long term. What I found interesting about this is that this came out just shortly after Zelensky said he was looking for peace in Ukraine. We're getting a lot of mixed messages from Zelensky at the moment. Things seem to be, we saw him at the peace summit that they had, where all these European countries got together and they had this peace summit and they said no peace at the peace summit. They basically said, we're not looking for peace with Russia, essentially, that Russia needs to give up everything and then we'll have peace. That was their idea of a peace summit. So there was that, the European Union, the West, United States, clearly not wanting to end the war. Then we see more evidence of this with Zelensky shaking hands with the Prime Minister of Estonia, doing a 10-year deal with Estonia, doing deals with other nations, security agreements. But then here's Zelensky. This is what he had to say about peace just around all of the same time. And he's been doing this. So we're seeing the deals and the no peace from the West, and then we're hearing him say these things. But then we're going to get to where the Azov Battalion comes in. But here's Zelensky talking about looking for a peace agreement.
We have to find and to prepare this plan and to put this plan on the table during months. We don't we don't have too much time because we have a lot of wounded and dead people on the battlefield and through civilians. That's why we don't want to have this war during years. So that's why we want to prepare this joint plan, put it on the table to the second peace summit.
Okay, so the second peace summit, the first one didn't go so well. They basically said no peace for Zelensky, no peace for Europe. I mean, no peace for Ukraine. We just want to keep this going. So he's saying we want to get something together. We have a lot of dead people and we need something for the next peace summit. So maybe he's kind of seeming like growing some balls against the West, saying we got to actually end this. We have dead bodies and you guys aren't willing to throw your bodies into the war. So we're going to have to come to some agreement. But here's where the Azov Battalion comes in. So here is the story from BBC. This just came out only last week. Zelensky sacks top general accused of incompetence. Now, why did Zelensky sack this general? Because the head of Azov Battalion told him to. That's interesting. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dismissed a top general after public criticism about excessive casualties and accusations of incompetence. Mr. Zelensky did not give a reason for his decision, which he announced during his nightly video address on Monday. So he didn't say anything. Why did they do it? But only hours before, the chief of staff of the Azov Brigade, Maj Bohdan Kroytevich, filed a complaint to the State Bureau of Investigation alleging that General Sotol had more Ukrainian soldiers killed than any Russian general. Maj Kroytevich wrote on Telegram that General Sotol was not being investigated for the loss of regions and dozens of cities and the loss of thousands of soldiers. It says, quote, "Sometimes it seems to me that the world sends us scum to fight against in order to unite us. And the whole military understands who I'm talking about because 99% of the military hate him for what he does." Maj Kroytevich post on Telegram was viewed over 800,000 times. He later praised the appointment of General Hanatov, saying that he's a very worthy officer. So there you've got a Azov Battalion commander, the head of Azov Battalion, as they said, right? He is the chief of staff of the Azov Brigade, criticizing the general. And then within hours, Zelensky gets rid of the guy, doesn't even say why. He doesn't want to say, well, because the Azov Battalion told me to. So that right there, that's already a pretty glaring, or I'd say it's an alarming development, that if the Azov Brigade, which is known for having hyper-nationalist, extreme, Nazi-like ideology, very brutal battalion, if they can just make a criticism and then suddenly the guy's gone, that's alarming. Who's really truly in charge of the military? Is it Zelensky or is it Azov Battalion? That would point to evidence that would be the Azov Battalion, but that's not the only evidence we have. Instead, we also have this article that just came out then yesterday. What will happen to Zelensky if he stops the war along the front lines? We have translated this. This was originally in this is a Ukrainian news organization that publishes in both Russian and Ukrainian. We've translated it to English. And this is the article. He says, in connection with the latest statements by President Volodymyr Zelensky, which can be interpreted as readiness to stop the war along the front line. So that's what I just showed you. And this isn't the only statement that Zelensky's made about maybe we should come to peace. Maybe we should have some sort of a plan here. He's kind of done this back and forth thing where he's, like I said, goes and meets with the Europeans and says, okay, I guess we'll keep the war going forever. But then he makes these kind of one-off statements. So there's some question about which direction Zelensky's headed in. So in connection with these latest statements, which can be interpreted as readiness to stop the war along the front line, the question has arisen of how Ukrainian society will perceive this option. Now, who's in Ukrainian society? Azov Battalion. Quite often, one can hear the point of view that if Zelensky refuses to demand the return of the 1991 borders as a condition for ending the war, he will be kicked out of power, either by a new Maidan or by a rebellion of patriotic soldiers, or in elections if the war does end, which they're not having elections. They probably won't have elections. My guess is there would be in that point, and not a silent military coup like what seems to be happening now, but instead an actual military coup would happen, and Azov Battalion would grasp onto power. And that is really clear with these two pieces of evidence that are quite, you might think, oh, it's just two pieces of these are pretty big pieces of evidence. Yesterday, so here's where more evidence. Yesterday, the chief of staff of Azov, Kroichevich, same guy, spoke on the topic. This is what the chief of staff of Azov had to say. He says, no peace without victory. There is only one victory, not a single Russian soldier on the territory of Ukraine. So hardline, Russia's got to go. We want to take back Crimea. We want the Donbass back. I mean, we all know that this isn't going to happen, but this is what the Azov Battalion chief of staff is saying. No peace without victory. There's only one victory, not a single Russian soldier on the territory of Ukraine. We will not leave this war to our descendants, and you will not leave it either, because if you try, it will be bad. Wow, so he's threatening Zelensky. Both for you and for them, he says. Both for you and for them. It's going to be bad. And he says, I write this with restraint, he says, with some restraint. So he's not flat out threatening his life, but he's pretty much threatening him. And he says, don't even think about it. He says, literally, if this is a breakthrough, don't even think about it. I write this with restraint. So now you've got the head of the Azov Battalion demanding the general gets ousted. So Zelensky, within hours. There wasn't even a discussion. It didn't take him days. It didn't take him weeks. It wasn't a back and forth. He just immediately did it. That is a showcasing that the Azov Battalion is truly in charge of this war, that there's already been a silent coup in Ukraine, that they have threatened Zelensky. They now are publicly, practically threatening Zelensky, saying, don't you dare even think about ending this war. We're going to continue on until there is not a single Russian in the 1991 borders of Ukraine, the original borders of Ukraine that were established. That is what they're saying they want, and nothing less than that. And they're threatening Zelensky. So it sounds to me like it's about high time Zelensky takes a trip to, I guess, Miami and settle in Miami and live there and end the war and escape with his family. That would be the best thing for the Ukrainian people. We all know that they're not going to push the Russians back. The Azov Battalion can have these, and look, they know that too. The Azov Battalion knows that too. But what this is this is a coup. This is their ability to gain that power. They can use these threats, these veiled threats. They can use their might. I mean, they're very scary. This is a very scary battalion. Zelensky doesn't want to mess with him. He doesn't want anything to happen to himself or to his family members. And so they know they're wielding this power right now, and they're going to continue trying to wield that power. And the best way to do that is by continuing to push forward with these threats, not end the war. If they end the war, they lose their power. Right now, they're just starting to gain it again. They're grasping it from Zelensky. So this is really alarming. And, is the West aware? Are our political leaders aware? Are the people that are over there shaking the hands of the Estonian Prime Minister, are they aware? Is the Estonian Prime Minister and all of the people in the West shaking Zelensky's hand, are they aware that he's not actually the guy anymore in charge, that it's the Azov Battalion? They, of course, are not going to fly them out and have meetings with them. That would be bad optics because they're Nazis. So everybody would question what the hell is actually going on and what kind of war we're actually supporting. Are they aware? Or do they not care? I mean, which is it from our leaders? I think they're aware. I think they know that the military is now in charge of Ukraine, the Azov Battalion. After all, what did the United States just recently do? Lift the sanctions on weapons to the Azov Battalion. So the Azov Battalion is gaining. They're getting. They're gaining more power, and they're pretty much in charge. It's just like Pakistan. Everybody makes a big to-do about Pakistan and about Imran Khan and all. Every single prime minister in Pakistan has been imprisoned. Everybody knows, anybody who knows anything about Pakistan knows it is run by their military. Their leaders are just showmen. They're not real leaders. It's not a real thing. It's the military who runs Pakistan. They're in charge. And the military is very much ingrained with the West, and they install their puppet prime ministers, and they tell them what to say. And if they don't like what they say anymore, they stick them in jail. If they gain too much power, popularity, they stick them in jail. They've all literally been to jail. Many of the prime ministers have even been assassinated in Pakistan. That's just the way that country runs. And what do? We support it. We continue to support it. And here we are supporting this war in Ukraine. And it looks increasingly like Zelensky is no longer the person truly in power. It looks like it's the Azov Battalion. So that's the evidence there. The big question, I think, for all of us is whether or not our government actually knows about this. And if they do, just like with arming the moderates in the Middle East, when they go and they give these moderate terrorist organizations weapons and they say, but they're the moderates, they're not the bad guys. And then they turn into what? The bad guys. Sure enough, inevitably. So here we are arming these radical racist Nazis in Ukraine. They're now in charge of Ukraine. We were supposed to bring them democracy, but instead we've brought them the same thing that has been brought to Pakistan, which is a military regime that is never going to get rid of power. They will prop up their guy. What they're going to do is they're going to, of course, have their token prime minister, their token president, just like Pakistan does. And if that person steps out of line, they'll threaten them. And they'll make sure that they'll get another guy who does exactly what the Azov Battalion wants. That is what we have set up in that country. We have not brought them peace. We have not brought them democracy. We have brought them a military dictatorship under the facade of some kind of democracy, just like in Pakistan. That is what we've done to Ukraine. And it's an absolute and complete disaster. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show. That's right, this is just a clip. If you want the full show, you can go to KimIversonShow.com and you can watch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for about 1 hour. It's totally free. Check it out, KimIversonShow.com. Thanks for watching.